Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Dominic Mills podcast. I apologize for the long break, the longest break I think I've had since I started, but whenever I think I have a handle on life, things tend to get a little more crazy. I've swapped jobs. I am a high school basketball coach now, but enough about that right now. I'm sure I'll get into it in a later episode. I am incredibly excited to announce my guest today. Stacey Simmons was a 7-time All S.E.C performer and 3-time All-American at the University of Florida as a two-sport athlete, splitting his time between track and football. Stacey was able to compete internationally as a member of the United States track team, and after leaving Florida, Stacey was selected with the 83rd pick in the 1990 draft by the Indianapolis Colts. Our interview next, but first, let's blast that intro.
Samuel cuts it back. Ohio State wins. Barrett looks, fires, touchdown, Buckeye. Oh my goodness! Barrett Rozier! How do you do? Cousins, Ohio State, look out, ball! And you don't like that. You don't like NBA basketball.
Welcome back. I am here with my friend Stacey Simmons. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm fine. Dominic, how about yourself?
I'm doing well, doing well. That hurricane didn't hit us too hard today. I didn't lose power at all. I know you had mentioned that you lost power for a little bit, but it looks like everything's back on now.
It is. You know what? That hurricane actually was worse this time as a tropical storm than what hit us when Ian came through my area of the state.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Since I'm not with the county anymore, I didn't get a call to do any emergency work this time, so I've just been hanging out at home all day today.
Well, Dom, it wasn't that bad. It was just more rain and, I felt the wind a little bit more. But, I mean, overall, it wasn't bad, but it was a little bit more of a nuisance than it was
Yeah.
with Ian.
Yeah, it's been something that I growing up in Ohio, I didn't really the idea of hurricanes were so scary, and then I come down here and nobody in Florida is ever worried about one. It is just it's like, what are you doing for the hurricane? Nothing.
Yeah. Just
So you're from the Tampa Bay area originally, correct?
Oh, yeah, born and raised Clearwater, Florida, west of Tampa Bay.
Okay, so what was your experience like growing up in Clearwater?
You know what, Dom? I thought about it, and I actually had a excellent childhood just growing up. And the reason I say excellent, I grew up in a household with my mom and dad. There was 8 of us. I'm the youngest of 8, 4 boys, 4
Wow.
girls, and we were involved in everything. So my mom and dad got us involved in the community. We were heavily involved in church and school also. So activities came along with that. So pretty much our whole neighborhood was a big community environment. So it was a good time growing up, I have to admit.
Yeah, so with a being the youngest of 8, I can imagine that that was a very competitive household.
Oh yeah. Now, um, we spread 17 years from the oldest, which is my sister, to myself. And in the household coming up, as everybody moved out, it was my sisters and I. So my sisters was rough on me. I had one other brother that was, he says the reason that I'm fast and could do all the things that I do is because of him. And I didn't want him to catch me and beat me up. So
Mhm.
he takes claim for all that.
Well, sometimes that's how it works. The older brothers get the little brothers there. So what other sports did you play growing up?
Um, My number one love was baseball. First sport I ever played. Played baseball, loved baseball, played it all throughout high school. Um, Played football, and I ran track. So my thing was I could run. In sports, speed kills. So I was actually good at other sports because I could run. So without the speed, I don't know. Now it would have been a little rough for me, but speed kills, and man, I'm taking that to my grave with me.
Yeah. So what would you say your your most vivid sports memory as a kid was?
Um, I told you it was 8 of us coming up. I have a sister that name is Veronica. And Veronica, you ask her, she thinks she's my mom. Veronica has 2 kids of her own, but she always carried me around with her, took me to the library. And I remember when I was 6 years old, walking back from the library, they were having a field day out in the field, and my sister yells across the field. You see all these kids out running, competing against each other. My brother can beat everybody out there. And I'm looking at her like, huh? So my sister, athletic, the kids gonna be like, well, bring them out here. Let's see what they can do. I'll never forget. That was my first real experience running against older kids, scared as heck, and I beat them. So my sister was my first agent, sort of say, and just hype man and just anything that you can imagine somebody doing for you just to get you to that next level. That was my sister, boosting.
That's awesome. Are you guys still close today?
Oh yeah, she still thinks she's my mom, and and try to boss me around and tell me what to do. So yeah, my sister Veronica's still there, still getting on me, still making sure I do what I need to do.
So, how were you introduced to football? What was your first football practice like?
Well, remember I said in the neighborhood we played whatever sport was in season. So during football season, everybody in the neighborhood would come out, play football in the streets. Baseball, we'll play baseball. So we had a lot of guys that did extremely well in the neighborhood, then went on to high school, did even better. And a few went on to some major colleges, smaller colleges. So we were always very competitive. So I had the opportunity coming up behind some of the other guys, and I just kind of ran with it and got a little bit more lucky or fortunate than the other guys in the neighborhood. And it just went from there, from high school, just kind of ran off with it.
When did you know that sports were going to be something that you would have a lot of success with?
Just, from the words of my sister Veronica, who was my agent back then,
Hmm.
we kept saying I was going to go to the Olympics to run track. And again, I was a small kid then, and I could run. So in actuality, I honestly thought I would have opportunity. I'd always dreamed about running in the Olympics. You see those guys, and I just could run, and I knew I could run, but I didn't know how far I could go. I just dreamed that I would someday run in the Olympics. So that was always a goal or a dream of mine.
And you got to run with Team USA. Was that in the Olympics or was that in another event?
Um, my freshman year in college, since I was still 18, I competed in the 19 and under. It was the United States team that went and represented, our country, and we ran against other countries. Several members from that team went on and ran in the Olympics in '88, the next year. Unfortunately, I was not able to do that because I was concentrating more on football. However, several members from that team made the '88 Olympic team. So it was a good experience. I could still run, and running to this day, I tell it, multi-sport athletes that if you can't run, man, you need to learn how to run because it could take you a long ways, just running and
Hmm.
understanding the art of running.
Yeah, that's a really cool premise. Even though you didn't get to compete in the Olympics in '88, what was your experience like the year before?
The year before was my freshman year in college, and I was a state champion in high school 2 years. So that's what kind of vaulted me to that recognition in the state of Florida. Now, you have to remember back in my day, it was a little different from it is now. We have all this media coverage and social media. We didn't have that then. So I won the state championships as a junior in the 100-yard dash, and was this sports writer out of Orlando, and he really just ran with my name and just got me kind of recognition all over the state. And then colleges started calling, like, man, this kid can run and he plays football too. So a lot of shout outs go to this sports reporter back then that kind of put my name on that state level and got me recognized a whole lot faster than I don't know, then what would have happened.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think of how many potential great athletes could have slipped through the cracks when there wasn't that widespread media coverage of certain events. Like it boggles my mind when I think of how many great athletes have slipped through the cracks over the years. You talked a little bit about when you first started getting recruited after you were mentioned by that reporter. What was the recruiting process like for you? Did you have a lot of schools that you were looking at, or was it more of a smaller circle?
Um, at the time, I was well highly recruited from a lot of schools throughout the country. However, Dom, I knew that I was going to stay in the state of Florida. I didn't want to go anywhere, so I knew from the beginning it was either going to be Florida State or the University of Florida. It was no doubt in my mind one of those two. However, you're young, you want to experience other schools, other places, and see what they have to offer. So, a lot of schools throughout the country contact me, and it was crazy. So when you hear about these kids getting recruited, it's crazy. And I know you're a coach and you see it, but letters coming every day and coaches calling. And at that time, you couldn't commit early. So it was your senior year when you started receiving all this paperwork, all these calls and talking to your parents. And it can be aggravating, let's sort of say, and it was a good experience, but it's rough. It's can be tough since you're not ready for it.
What were some of the hmm, what would you say is what were some of the places that you visited while you were out, getting recruited?
The first place that I visited, they give you 5 visits. I went to Minnesota,
Okay.
University of Minnesota. You remember Lou Holtz was there. Had a
Mhm.
buddy over in St. Pete that was saying he's going over to Minnesota, and my mom went with me, so I was like, man, that's gonna be a good trip, and I get to meet Lou Holtz. However, Lou Holtz decided to leave and go to Notre Dame. So I went up there, and I still went there and thought it was a nice campus, but it's too cold for me. Snow, I didn't know anything about snow, and so
Mhm.
I just thought it was nice and great place to visit. Afterwards, I went to Georgia Tech. My sister was up in Atlanta in school, so man, let's go up to Georgia Tech and see what they have to offer. You know, um, I don't think I'll go there, but it was nice. And then I went to Michigan, the great Bo Schembechler, and it
You
was
see the jacket I'm
crazy.
wearing, right?
That's Ohio State. I'm sorry. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay, it's
Yeah.
okay.
eh,
What was visiting Michigan like?
Oh man, it was crazy. But that was the first time I ever heard anyone say, "You're a receiver." And I was a running back in high school, All-American running back, All-State, and hearing receiver come from somebody else's mouth, out that just spoiled my whole visit. But they were just telling me my future before it actually happened. I didn't want to hear it, but that was the path that I was going to be taking. So, it was nice to go up there, visit and meet the great Bo Schembechler, but that was not what I wanted to hear about playing receiver. Then I ended up going to University of Florida. Um, that probably was one of my best visits. And I had a nephew that came with us, and he was like a little brother to me, and they just treated him with the most. They won his heart. So you know how it is. You have a little brother, sister, something. They win their heart. It's like, oh man. And so he loved it. So
That's
he
how they
was,
got you?
yeah, he got it. Then I ended up at Florida State. And I was like, man, it's gonna be tough between the two because I love both of the schools, and I had a little thing for Florida State because I always wanted to play with Deion Sanders. Thought Deion was great, football, baseball. And he
Mhm.
just did it all. So I kind of want to be in that environment with somebody that can do a couple of things or a few sports.
Yeah, for sure. So how did you end up deciding to go to Florida?
Um, just coming down again, I already knew it was going to be Florida, Florida State, and my mom had a little bit more of the factor helping me decide on which way that I wanted to go with that. Because as a 17-year-old kid, it's kind of hard to make those tough decisions something
Mhm.
that's going to affect you for the next 4 or 5 years. And mom, just swayed me more to the University of Florida, which I'm glad she did. At the time, sometimes you just like, is that the right decision? Or I don't know. But when I look back in retrospect, it was the best decision that we made together.
Yeah, and it worked out pretty well for you.
Yes, it did. Mhm.
S so, we talked a little bit about your swap from, running back to wide receiver, and you talked a little bit about how you reacted when you were first told about it. When you eventually made the switch, what was that like?
Dog, I thought I was the man at running back, just in the area, in Pinellas County, I was the top dog, the top man. I was All-American, All-State running back. I didn't realize there were other All-Americans, All-State athletes that go off to college. There's even athletes that's all nothing, but they're really good athletes. They wouldn't be playing college football if there wasn't. So when I got to the University of Florida, there was 5 other running backs. Um, Octavius Gould, he was a big time running back out of up north. I want to say Jersey. Mike Nolan played. Goodness, he was probably the best athlete that I've ever played with.
Wow.
Cedric Smith. There were some guys, Tony Lomack, and I'm just naming these guys because I was in awe, thinking that I was the man, and I realized that, man, I'm just a squirrel trying to get a nut and just trying to find my place. So it could be a little intimidating if you're just not able to try to compete with the big dog. So I had kind of found my niche and got in a little bit, but then I realized that I wasn't going to get a lot of playing time at running back. And I was asked during my freshman year to play receiver. It was like, we need help at receiver. You can go back to running back in the spring. So I reluctantly agreed and played quite a bit as a freshman. But the dilemma was at the end of the year, all those the receivers were gone. So it was like, hey, you can be the starting receiver, then you can come back and play running back. And I'm thinking, no, I want to play running back. I'm coming back. Then the news came. Emmitt Smith has signed with the University of Florida. I saw the writing on the wall right there. And,
Mhm.
you just kind of know like where that's going to head. And, like a lot of the guys was thinking, what are we going to do when Emmett comes? So Emmett was the truth. And, he's Hall of Fame. He came in kicking butt, went on to the NFL kicking more butt. So I think I made a good decision.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder every once in a while, but I can't look back on it now. I'm glad that I did what I did.
Yeah, for sure. You wouldn't wanna get buried behind a guy like that, that's for sure.
No,
So, what is a Saturday at the swamp like? Paint me a picture.
alrighty. Um, First of all, it's crazy. Remember when I told you I was in high school my senior year? Um, I knew I was going to go to either Florida or Florida State. My high school track coach was a big Florida State guy. My head coach football was a Florida guy. So, I was already torn between those two coaches. I went to a game my senior year, Florida and Florida State. Never forget, it was at the University of
Wow.
Florida, and Florida State won. But that's the first time I ever went to a college football game. It was crazy. Just coming in, I was just eyes wide open, like, man, this is what it's about. Now, at that time, I didn't know that I was going to go to the University of Florida. When I got there, it was even crazier because it's just 75, 80,000 people. And I mean, it can be intimidating because, I come from a place where we play in front of 300, maybe 350 people in the stand
Mhm.
to 80,000. Oh my goodness. So just right there is just a big eye-opening experience. Dom, it's just crazy. It's hard to explain, the excitement of the fans and
Yeah.
just heart pumping. It's the best.
Yeah, growing up, I never really thought of Florida as that crazy environment to play in, but, I think it was 2018, Joe
Mhm.
Burrow's first year at LSU, not the year they won the national championship.
Oh,
My brother went to the LSU game at Florida, and Florida ended up winning on a pick six at the end, and he told me, like, hearing the screams of that was like rib cage rattling, just that many people just yelling and screaming. And I part of my bucket list is I want to go and visit all of the SEC and all of the bigger college games to just to see what it's all like. I want to go see a Penn State whiteout. I want to see a game at LSU.
Mhm.
What would you say is what would you say are some of the hardest places you've had to play at?
Um, some of the hardest, um, well, just right off the bat, I remember when we used to play Miami every year, and I was always on the schedule, Miami and Florida State. Um, Miami was tough. I remember going down my sophomore year and they put it to us, but it was just a tough place to play. And I remember the year before my freshman year, they came in, it was a really close game. I think uh, uh, Testaverde was the quarterback, and just really tough place. Florida State always, because it's a home away game, and that's a
Mhm.
big rivalry. I mean, we can be
Mhm.
0-100, but when we play Florida State, hey, you better be ready.
Yeah, gotta win that
Um,
one.
Another place that was really tough to play at is LSU. You know, I heard a guy say, "Hey, you better be ready for Mike." Mike, who is Mike? And we were standing out, getting ready to go out of the tunnel, and they poked the lion, Mike the tiger, or whatever it was, a tiger, and he
Mhm.
just roared, and that will scare the living daylights out of you.
Yeah,
But that's a really
100%.
tough place to play, for my memories. A lot of places, Florida and Georgia, but that was a neutral site. It's just crazy games, but those come up to mind just instantly. Miami, LSU, Florida State, tough
What was
places.
your what would you say was your favorite game that you played in over there in terms of it could be the game that you had your best game, it could be blowout win over somebody you didn't think you were gonna beat. What was the most memorable game?
Um, Freshman year, I played receiver. That's what after I moved over to receiver, and LSU was expected to win. you know, um, and it was just a big win. We beat LSU like in another game. I remember Curran Bell running in for a touchdown, and it went crazy in there. And I can just remember we were just like beating him up in the end zone, and he tried to get up off the ground. Everybody jumping on the pile, and it just went crazy. Just being involved or being a part of something like that as a young guy, a freshman, and, I'm like, "Man, this what it's about. I like this. I wanna be a part of this every year."
Mhm. The moments like that, granted now that I'm coaching at a small school,
Mhm.
there's a lot less meaning to the games, but I tell those kids, like, when we're running sprints, like, it sucks right now, but when we get to when it matters, you guys are gonna be glad that we did this. Like, we're gonna need this work that we're putting in right here, so you guys just need to think about that, and
Yep.
it's moments like that are lost on people until they're in the big moment, and it's like,
In the moment,
"Wow."
exactly. Then you realize all that work and all that time and all that you bonded with the guys, like, man,
Mhm.
you know, I'm since I'm in my 30s now, Dom, um, I look back to when I used to play, and I'm thinking exactly what you're saying, like, "Man, those were great times." I didn't understand then what coach was trying to tell me or what the guys were saying, but now I get it.
So, what was the draft process like for you? How did it feel to get drafted?
Um, you know, I really didn't think about my opportunity to play professional football as a freshman, nor did I as a sophomore. But my junior year, and I guess I don't know if it's like this with everybody, but I saw guys ahead of me or a couple of years older than me, they're getting opportunities and they playing, and they'll come back and say, "Hey man, keep working. You know, pretty soon you're gonna have a chance or you'll have this opportunity to play at the next level." So when that started coming around, I started getting interest from, agents will call and say they have their services available for you when you're ready. And you couldn't do anything until
When
it
you're
was that
ready with a
time.
nice little, like, envelope of cash in your mailbox.
That would have been great. But just that whole process, just making sure you're ready for the combine. The combine is big, or some guys didn't get invited to the combine, which I thought everyone went to the combine. However, it was only 300, and I guess it's still 300. Um,
Hmm.
College athletes get invited, so it's just a big showcase and your chance to just show what you can do in those 2 days or those 3 days that you're there in front of the scouts, coaches, and the owners. And also, this is really serious. You see guys there taking it serious. I was there behind a gentleman by the name of uh, S- S- Sharp, not Sterling, but Shannon Sharp. And I
Yeah,
kept,
yeah. Everybody
yeah,
knows Shannon
big tight
Sharp.
end, Hall of Fame. So I'm standing behind him, and his big thing was he was out of Georgia, and he was serious, and I'm looking at these guys like, oh my goodness, I need to take this more serious. And his thing was, okay, I know I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna run good routes, catch the ball, but I need to get up under the bench and bench press 25 times, 225. He just wanted to let everybody know that, yeah, I can catch, I can block, I can run, but I'm strong as heck. And if you look at him, you can already tell that you're strong.
Hmm.
But I guess he wanted to break the record for receivers.
So,
So,
what?
I'm
Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
man.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
I just realized that, it's no longer a game that you play for fun. This is serious. This is big time. And so now you have to have that mentality of, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm getting ready to go after, and I got to take it serious.
Yeah. So it's crazy that he was the guy that had you thinking like that. Did you get to interact with him at all outside of that?
Not outside, but just those 3 days that we were there, because I was right behind him, SH, well, his last name, SI was mine.
Hmm.
So I was standing behind him, and, I got to meet him and talk to him. And we played a game against Denver my rookie year, and I talked with him just real briefly. But you see guys that come and go, you end up in camp with them, and you're like, hey, I remember you from such and such camp.
Yeah, yeah.
So they come and go. Mm.
So, when you were at Florida, you were a seven-time All SEC, three-time All-American. Um, those distinctions,
Mhm.
amazing. Tell me the one that meant the most to you and maybe the one that was the most surprising.
Um, well, the All American titles come through track,
Mhm.
and so we our track team sprinters consisted of mostly football/track athletes. So about 90% of the track athletes that were sprinters were football players that could run. And we pride ourselves on being able to play football, but then get on the track and do even better sometimes. Um, so three of my All American, well, those three was from the track. I mean, from track, and then I had several SEC titles where we won the SEC, couple of years in track. So track, we really did extremely well when I was there. So a lot of those came um, as a, I want to say rookie, but as a freshman, I was named to like one of the SEC teams. So after that, it just kept rolling and rolling. And my thing was rolling with the track, but I was a football player.
Mhm.
Hey, Dom, I, not to get off the topic, I ran across a guy the other day, and he said something to me that made me look. He asked me, he said, Stacey Simmons, why do I know you? He said, I went to school with you. And I was like, where did you go to school with me at? He was like, at the University of Florida. He said, remember you played baseball? I forgot to tell you, my freshman year, I played baseball for
Okay.
about a week and a half.
A
And then,
week and a half.
you know why? I went out because, that was my thing. I can do two sports, either track
Mhm.
and football or baseball and football. So I was like, I'm going to play baseball. And I went out and right after the season and was working out with the baseball team for about a week and a half. And it was Christmas time. We'd go home and come back. They give you that short little break. I came back and I told Coach Joan, I said, Coach, I'm not going to play baseball this year. And he was asking me why. I said, oh, it's too many games. Now, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I'm going to run track. They look like they're having fun over there. All right. man, I want to run track. So I ended up running track instead of playing baseball at the university.
So that had to be hard to give up. That had to be hard to give up if football was your favorite or I'm sorry, if baseball was your favorite growing up.
Yeah, it was. However, I saw track. I don't know what made me just track. I just saw them out there and they looked like they were having the time of their life on the track. And I was like, I got to be a part of this. I got to experience it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's understandable for sure. Sports are always the best when you're having the most fun. If you're not having fun, it's sports can be really rough. So wanting to join a team where they're having a lot of fun is definitely understandable. Um, so when did you know? Oh, actually, let me backtrack a little bit.
Mm.
So you spent some time playing overseas. What was that like?
Well, I had the opportunity to play in the World League. So for you younger listeners out there, the NFL, had the World League um back in the early 90s. It went like 3 years. I think the third year they folded. But just teams that were in the States, and it was maybe four teams over in Europe. And it was pretty cool, to go over. Well, I was in Orlando, so I got to go over to Germany and play. Um, I don't know if you call Canada overseas. It's just out of the country.
Mhm. That's out of
Um,
the country for sure.
yeah, we had another team. I can't think of the other team, and I was hurt that I didn't get to go over in Europe. There was a couple of teams over in Europe. So it was a great experience, just to get out of the country. And I think that was that push to make the NFL just known more internationally. Yeah, so
Yeah,
great
and
experience.
you mentioning not being able to travel while you're injured brings up some stuff. Somebody I worked with at the county, Jeff Miller, won a Super Bowl with the Packers in the
Uh-huh.
'90s, and he was hurt for the playoffs, I believe.
Uh,
And the Packers are run by the city that's there, not like the actual owner. And then they ended up deciding to not give him his Super Bowl ring. So
oh,
to this day, he does not have a Super Bowl ring. So it's really weird how professional sports organizations treated athletes back then versus how they treat them now. I'm sure now they'll. I don't know if they gave you the choice or not to go, but I know that there are a lot of places where they're not.
yeah, back when I played in the 90s, there were some organizations that you just heard excellent things about that that they're gonna take care of you as a player, and just players just love the owners. And and then there was some places that might not have been that player friendly, so to say. And if you would prefer going to the other place than being with the team that you were with.
And that's understandable for sure.
Mhm.
Um, when did you know it was time to hang them up?
Man, that's a excellent question. I'm gonna tell you why. Um, I had 3 years experience in the NFL. My rookie year, I
Mhm.
played um, all 16 games with Indianapolis. I got cut after camp the second year, with the Colts. So I went over to New England for 4 weeks and was there and stood on the sidelines in uniform. Didn't get to play, but just practice, and they let me go. So at the end of the year, I signed in the end of the 92-91 season. I signed with Tampa Bay Buccaneers in February of 92. At that time, the Buccaneers said, "Hey, Stacey, we want to send you to the World League so you can get more experience," which was cool. So I played there with a guy, Scott Mitchell, left-handed quarterback that played behind Marino, and then ended up going to Detroit. And it was great experience again to travel, just to play and to try to understand the game and being a receiver a little bit more. Um, I got hurt right before the playoffs in the World League, and I never got hurt like this before. I left ice on my leg in a meeting. So I'm sitting down watching film. Well, I fell asleep. and woke up. I couldn't feel my leg from my knee down. So that didn't end. So I thought this was going to be my breakout year. I still was signed by the Raiders. I went to camp with the Raiders, and it was a do or die because Mr. Al Davis was like, man, you can run, and we love you.
Yeah,
We love
you know,
speed.
he loves speed. You know,
That
Al
that
Davis
was it.
loves speed.
I went into camp, Dom. I never been to camp. 14 receivers, all of them was as fast or faster than me. I never been to a place that I wasn't one of the fastest guys there until I went there. They had the Canadian 4x1 team, 4 receivers that was there. They just could run. He just wanted fast guys. But they kind of dropped themselves out quick, because they couldn't catch. They didn't understand the game. So that made it easier for us guys.
Mm-hmm.
But dang, Dom, I done got off topic, huh?
No, it's okay. But here, wait. Let me ask you about this injury. So you left ice on your knee. It fell asleep. What ended up being the issue?
It was called peroneal nerve damage. I like froze the nerve in the back of my knee. They had a receiver with the Bucks that did the same thing the previous year, and it took a couple of months before I was able to really
Wow.
walk. I had the drop foot syndrome. I had to walk with crutches, and I was able to make it to camp with the Raiders, and I did okay, but I wasn't 100%. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't 100%. So, they let me go at the end, and Al Davis was really trying to keep me around, giving me an opportunity, but I couldn't compete. And I never forget, I was standing waiting for a kick return against the Houston Oilers in the LA Coliseum. And me and another guy was the two deep guys waiting for the kick. And I never forget, this guy ran in front of me and caught the kickoff. He wanted, and I know it's really competitive, but he ran in front of me, caught my ball. At that moment, Dom, as soon as he caught the ball, he got hit. And I never forget, everything went in slow motion. The gentleman that got hit was screaming at the top of his lungs. And in my mind, I don't know if this really happened, but I saw 12 men from the Houston Oilers jump on the pile that he was on. And he was on the bottom of that pile just screaming at the top of his lungs. And I never forget, now I'm watching all this in slow motion. I didn't move. I'm watching all this in slow motion. I look over to the sidelines and I see the coach yelling at me. That's what happens when you're stupid. That's what happens. Dom, at that moment right there, I knew I didn't want to play football no more because my mind wasn't ready for that. And, football is a mental game. And at that point right then, I just knew, like, man, I don't know if I really want to do this. It was just one of the moments that just had me thinking. I walked to the sidelines and the coach still fussing at me. While the guy was still on the field, they were taking care of him, like trying to get him off and see what was wrong with him. But that was one of the moments that, man, do I really want this?
Yeah, football is definitely a game that when you go from falling in love with it as a kid, everybody's having fun, no one's really getting hit like that. Then you see something like that, it's a moment where it's easy to be like, "Ah, well, maybe it's time to hang it up." I I remember when I decided I wasn't sure if I wanted to play anymore. I was a lot younger. Um I was a defensive end. We were playing our rival school. We were blowing them out. We would always blow them out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they ran a reverse, and I see the reverse coming. Like I see the receiver coming back across the field, and so
Yeah.
I'm chopping, getting ready for it, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this man had time to wipe my clock before he cleaned it.
Oh,
This man laid me out, and then I look up, it's somebody who's in my Sunday school group, so there's only, like, 5 or 6 of us, and this is somebody I see
oh,
every week, just laid me out. I'm sitting there trying to and I'm like, "You know what? Maybe I like basketball more."
those bragging rights. Remember, that stuff
Mhm.
used to be legal. It was a
Yeah.
good hit then.
Mhm.
Oh man.
Yeah, I heard at least one "ooh" in the crowd, and that was enough for me.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Yes.
what is something you like to do in your spare time?
Um, I tried to figure out what I'm good at, what I really like doing, and it took me forever. And I don't know why it took me forever to realize it. I love sports. That's what I do. I like working with kids, and they don't have to be kids. It can be adults, but I mean, I like helping people get better or trying to make it to the next level. And I say it like that because the next level is, just graduating from high school, just
Yeah.
getting better, maybe want to improve their speed. So the next level just entails a lot of different things. But, my hobby is just working with people, is trying to see them get better. I just like helping people do things, on an athletic spectrum.
Yeah, so, you have your own coaching. I'm not quite sure what exactly it is, but you, like, help people rehab, from injury and stuff like that, correct?
Well, yeah, for the last 12, 13 years, I have a little small facility, and it's Stacey Simmons Sports Training. And, we've worked with a lot of football players. No, let me say this. We work with a lot of student athletes trying to get them to the next level. And, we more branched out into doing women's boot camps, just training of anybody. They can be from 8 to 80. It doesn't matter. Anybody that want to get better or try to live a healthier lifestyle, we work with them. But since I work at a school and I've coached for the last 30 years. So I have a lot of student athletes that come in and just, work on speed, strength, agility, whatever they want to do to get better.
Okay. And, how would you like to be remembered?
Um, Man, that's a good one. So how would I like to be remembered, like on my tombstone or
Mhm. Or when you've been dead for 10 years and someone's like, "Man, you remember Stacey Simmons? Yeah, that guy was awesome. He was real
not,
kind." Now, how would you like to be remembered?
see, now when somebody say my name, that's just what I would like for them to do. I like for the first thing to do is smile, because I'm a happy person. I like to make people feel good. I like to help them out, but I want people to know that I care, and that's what I do. I care. I want to see people achieve and do better things. I'm a Christian, and I'm that guy that's there for you.
Okay, I really like that. So, last question. This is something I ask everybody, okay? Now, when we were preparing, I don't believe I sent this one to you.
Okay.
What is one conspiracy theory you believe to be true? Now, it can be as simple as
Hmm.
man, everyone I'm thinking of is not simple, so I'm not gonna say any of the ones I'm thinking, but most of the time,
I'm gonna tell
yeah,
you one. I
okay.
one, and I don't know why this just hit me, but I'm still having thoughts about, did we ever send somebody to the moon, and did they
Ooh,
ever walk on the moon, on the
that's
surface of the
actually
moon?
the one I was thinking of saying. So,
Realize, dog. And I know, what's crazy. I'm a science
mm,
teacher,
okay.
but I would never say that in my class because I know that'll spark a whole bunch of. But because somebody asked me in my class, well, why haven't we been going back to the moon? Why is it that just something that we don't do? And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, and that's just what I would say. I don't know.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's the one that came to mind first.
it's really interesting, especially when you get into those clips. I think there's the real famous one of the flag waving in the wind, and there's no wind in outer space. I don't know. That's one that's always been really interesting for me. I hope it's not true because I want us to be able to be more capable of like interstellar travel than
Mm,
what may be true if we faked that. Because then it's like, what are we doing today? Is the Mars rover even on Mars? Like, what's
oh,
going on? Um,
oh, yeah.
I'm not sure
So
if you. Oh,
was
go ahead.
that what's yours? Your biggest.
Man, it's really hard. When I talk to people about coming on the podcast, when I tell them I like to ask people what their favorite conspiracy theory is,
Uh-huh.
everybody believes that like I believe all of them, and it's almost the complete opposite. I'm a huge fan of receiving information and being able to debunk it later. Um, my I'm rambling now. I'd say the conspiracy theory that I'd say I believe in is we know more about the possibility of either A, advanced technology, or B, another intelligent civilization than what is common knowledge, I guess. Like I think it's really possible that either A, the government's I don't like that now. I definitely sound like I need a tin hat, but
I think I'm seeing where you're going.
yeah, no, I feel like they either A, have a lot more a lot better technology that we're not privy to, or they have information about somebody who does have that technology and they're not telling us. For whatever reason that may be, maybe it's better off that we don't know. Seeing how we handle things on a daily basis, maybe it's the right decision.
Yeah, man.
Okay, Stacy, do you have anything you want to promote or plug before I let you go?
Um, if you get a chance, always check out my website and drop
Okay.
me some lines. StaceySimmons.com, www.staceysimmons.com, and Dom. You and guys, I call Dominic Dom. This I guess a coaching thing, but I've been listening to your podcast, so I subscribe to your podcast. I've been listening to them, and man, I
Okay.
found them pretty interesting. And
Yeah.
I'm like, holy smoke! I was listening to my man, the golfer, the other
Oh,
day.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That was
yeah.
on the PGA. I was like, oh
Mhm.
goodness! I'm like, go ahead, Dom. So those of that's watching, man, you got to tell your friends about Dom because Dominic Mills podcast is the bomb. Yes, it
Thank you very
is.
much, and,
Oh,
if
it
you
really
liked that
is.
one, thank you. I think you'd really like the Terry Tucker episode too. That was he was a SWAT hostage negotiator, and he was an awesome guy. He ha has cancer right now. I'm it's pretty critical. I'm not for sure right now because I just thought of it.
Okay.
I'm not
That's
certain that it's terminal, but he's got an outlook on life that is just so bright and so positive, and he cracks some jokes. We talk about his stories.
he,
It's a really good episode.
he's the hostage negotiator.
Hmm.
Okay, I listened to his.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's why I'm like, okay, Dom. I told you, man, I've been listening. Heck yeah,
Well,
I'm gonna have to.
I appreciate that,
I,
my guy. I
I'm gonna have to
appreciate
get in
that.
touch with you outside of this and talk to you though, because you're doing
Yeah.
some good
Okay. All
stuff.
right. All right.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for coming on.
Man, I appreciate it, Dom. And again, I'm gonna be with you on your show listening, and I'm gonna let all my buddies know about you. You are the man. I appreciate you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Dominic Mills Podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please make sure to leave a 5-star rating or a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can, please give the show a follow on Instagram and TikTok at the Dominic Mills Podcast. Now, that's all for me. Please make sure you stay safe and stay curious.